So, day one, what's your goal to unlock? What weapon are you trying to get your hands on? Today, I wanted to share with you 5 weapons in the beta that I think will carry the most weight in each shot, but also are very easy to pick up and use regardless of skill level. Obviously, try out all the weapons in the beta. Stats don't carry over to the full game, but if you want a few ones to jump in quick and just get the hang of everything with, I'd recommend these over the course of the next 2 weeks of the beta. So, drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Black Ops 6 coverage. Lots coming here this weekend and beyond, as we are fully into Black Ops 6 season now, so I'd love to have it in the community. For now, let's take a look at the weapons that I think you should be trying out. First, a little direction on this. This isn't a class setup video, so this is more of just a, hey, I enjoyed these weapons through my first day of play, and also then some with COD Next. So with so many levels on each of these weapons thus far, we're still gonna have a lot of grinding to do, but it'll take a little bit of time. So maybe I'll see you in a few days, or for like weekend 2 with a weapon build and class setup guide or something like that. But for the time being, this is just a few weapons that I've enjoyed and want to share with you. Number one, and probably the one you've absolutely heard about so far, is the Jackal PDW. Right now, it is probably the best gun in the game, I'd say, and that also appears to be the general consensus throughout the community. It's a mobile SMG, has good damage properties, and has a wild range for a submachine gun as well. There's not too many weapons that can one-to-one match this right now. When it comes to mobility, SMGs and rifles I think will dominate Black Ops 6 for sure, but in a lot of the situations currently and in the future when face-off maps are opened up, you're going to see this used so much. Might be the only SMG that you'll see at points, especially here in weekend 1, though of course again I wouldn't recommend only running this, but you're gonna see a lot of this for sure. One thing to consider with all the weapon builds is that we have a larger depth to the leveling system in Black Ops 6's beta. Like, we have 40 plus weapon levels per weapon, and honestly, weapon leveling takes some time, so getting every single attachment, obviously it's gonna take time, but it might just be worth doing, especially on these weapons that you can take engagements at almost any range with. Though what makes the Jackal in particular so formidable right now is that there's 2 ways to access decent builds of this weapon in particular right out of the gate. Number 1, a default class. The first default class available as soon as you jump into the beta is a class that offers the Jackal PDW as a primary and the XM4 as your secondary, utilizing that overkill wildcard, and honestly both weapons are kitted out with 5 attachments and pretty nice. Are they the best or perfect attachments? No, but they get the job done and efficiently. Plus, it allows you to use attachments that aren't the worst while you rank up the weapon as you go along. You don't have to unlock the weapon or create a class before you start making weapon level progress. So from game number 1, you can already start progressing this weapon leveling and getting yourself to a point where, okay, now I can swap out attachments for an even better build. And the second way is the Vault Edition. If you ended up with the Vault Edition, you end up having master crafts for the Jackal PDW, Ames 85, Marine SP, LR762, and the combat knife. So that means that not only do you have 5 attachments on the weapon by default, but you also have a pretty cool skin and unique weapon inspect to go along with it. So honestly, right out of the gate, Jackal PDW, you can use this and kind of dominate. The next weapon that I'd recommend and that I've been having a blast with is the XM4. Again, another base weapon along that same default class that we mentioned. The XM4 though is genuinely reliable. Once again, we talked about how this and the M4 and various other titles have pretty much just been the pick up and use weapon. When we discuss the Ames 85 and the AK-74 here in a second, it's something that those weapons are better in certain aspects, but from purely like a balanced standpoint, I think the XM4 has them both beat in regards to just being able to pick it up and use. The Ames has a better fire rate, the AK has better damage profiles, but you have trade-offs with both of those. The faster fire rate equals less damage and more recoil usually. Better damage usually equates out to slower rate of fire and or more recoil. So you split the difference and you have the XM4, an all-around reliable weapon and an easy-to-use rifle in the game. Again, it is available by default, but it's also a default weapon. That means once you hit level 4 in the beta and you have access to create a class, you can start working towards and getting those weapon levels out. You don't have to wait any further beyond that. Not that it helps now, but if you end up playing and getting to level 30, you also get a nice blueprint skin that can be used once earned in the beta, and also that will be there for launch in October. Beyond that, the Ames 85, again, is another one. I'm a rifle main in a lot of FPS games that I play, so this one, though, it's a faster firing rifle, kind of a midpoint, I feel, between like the XM4 and the FFAR, or rather FAMAS of old. It doesn't feel that fast firing, but it also does have a faster fire rate, and it's something that I think is one that can hold its own if you get used to it. Damage is a little bit lower, but it's also something that with a decent build and a little bit of getting used to that recoil by default, you'll see that it's pretty easy to shoot straight as an arrow here with this, which again, in closer quarter situations or even at medium range, you can end up really using to your advantage. You just get off basically the law of numbers. The more shots, even though it ends up having less damage per round, the more shots you get off, the more damage you're doing. So just simply by having a faster attack rate at that point, it can do really well for you. But a lot of fun to play around with that one as well. Would highly recommend. And the AK-74, again, as stupid as it sounds to say, hey, all three of the rifles we have in the beta are worth using, I really think they are. It's a slower rate of fire, but it does have a higher damage than the other two weapons here. An interesting trade-off with the right attachments can feel like an absolute bulldozer though. So it's one of those things that, assuming you're in an equal gunfight, you don't have to take first shot and try and 180 and then spot the enemy, you're going to be able to win just about any gunfight here with this because, again, it is just that powerful, and if you can control it, it's going to do well for you. The next weapon, and what's going to round out my sort of 5 that I've been loving here in the beta, is the C9. So this one, in full transparency, I don't know that I'd recommend this in a lot of situations right now. But when Face Off comes out here at some point during this weekend and then continues on into next, then you're really going to see some usefulness out of the weapon. The way that I feel like this is might actually be closest compared to its counterpart in Cold War. That MP5 was incredible for close quarters, but outside of that close quarters range, not so much. That's the difference between this and the PDW right now, is that the PDW can and will challenge gunfights at a much longer distance than the C9. Like, the C9 is very much an SMG in those properties. So you get into maps like Pit, Stakeout, and Weekend 2, you're gonna have a great time with that. Gala, you might have a bit tougher of a time with that in the face-off maps because, to be honest, that central rotunda 2-story stage is just overlooking a pretty open area on both sides of the map. So you might get gunned down in the process trying to move around that map. The other two maps, well, again, it's going to be chaos and in-your-face action, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. Now, one thing that I will say is an honorable mention here and one to look out for next weekend is the Tonto 22. Unlocked at level 30 right now, so right as the beta concludes, you'll end up having a lot of fun with this one, I think. I had a blast with this at COD Next, so keep an eye out for this. What I consider this like is the pre-nerf Milano from Black Ops Cold War and Warzone, where it's got a slower fire rate, sure, but it's actually really comparable, I think, to the Milano in that fire rate, but then just has a menacing damage potential. Like, I know it's not the best comparison to MP because the health is entirely different, but I was taking out enemies with this in 6 shots fully armored, so this thing can really do some damage. Translate that to MP, you're going to be getting kills in like 3 shots probably landing, which is awesome. So while you can't get your hands on this one just yet, keep it in the back of your mind because I do think this will be one that is really fun to get some use out of. Now, in terms of like the weapon systems at hand right now, the beauty of the systems we have within this beta are, number one, attachments do not detract from your weapon builds mostly. Like, for the most part, anytime you put an attachment on your weapons, it's going to increase that potential of play. There's only a few limited number of attachments that actually do list visible cons here for this, which is interesting. And not to mention, optic attachments are shared between weapon classes, so that means that if I say progress the XM4 earlier than the AIMS or the AK, I can use those optics from the beginning of my progress, but not the other weapon-specific attachments. But it does allow me to at least, say, have some pinpoint precision really early on here that I can just use those optics whenever I want on those weapons. Unlike the Modern Warfare 2 way, you had to rank up specific weapons for specific optics, this is just a one-and-done type of thing. A nice hybrid, I think. And number two, it's the beta, so you can try these out and everything else, but at the end of next weekend, it won't matter. So I'm uploading this now as a way to say, hey, I've enjoyed my time so far, both early and while it's out in the wild here with these weapons. Not necessarily meta videos per se, but more so, hey, I enjoyed these ones, but I do highly recommend checking out every single weapon while you have the opportunity to. It's not going to matter in 2 weeks, so what's trying out a weapon and maybe doing bad with it? There's only potential upside. Nothing you have right now counts towards your stats. There's no beta stats right now, and these aren't going to carry over into the full game, so who cares? Try everything, but these are the ones that I think are a solid start. So that said, that is where we're going to wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts down below. Is there anything in particular that you guys are enjoying out of the beta, disliking, whatever the case? What weapons, your favorites? Let me know down below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 6. We've still got so much upcoming. Black Ops 6 season is in full effect here, so I'd love to have you guys in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.